half of the battle is won by asking the right questions, and the other
Right.
half is won basically by portraying that you have a basic understanding of what the industry and you seem like a subject matter expert. So I finished about in April or beginning of May. So I went to the States to walk in graduation, and I immediately started Bain in June. I mean, you start off as a generalist, but basically because of how it works is it's a bit by chance as well. Like if you're basically doing a lot of these like projects in a specific industry, then you indirectly get tied into a specific vertical, right? So I was doing a lot of like financial service. So this industry, I basically encompasses banking, asset management, insurance, right? Mostly Indonesian companies, but also some multinationals as well. Across different sort of like capabilities, right? I spoke about agile, strategy, performance improvement, and whatnot, right? And what I've learned in consulting is that you have to be very good at learning new things very fast at the end of the day, right? A lot of I think what consultants are very good at is structuring and whatnot is one thing, but essentially showing to the client they're an expert at the field while also asking questions, right?
I see. Okay.
So you're
Asking
basically
informed
learning
questions, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, half of the battle is won by asking the right questions, and the other
Right.
half is won basically by portraying that you have a basic understanding of what the industry and you seem like a subject matter expert. That's basically how it works in consulting. Because if you go into consulting if you go into a meeting and you put on I wouldn't say a facade, but an impression that the client has to teach you what these things are, then that doesn't justify the fees, right? Unfortunately.
I see. And you, if I understand the field of management consulting correctly, you get assigned clients new clients fairly frequently. So you have to become like an expert in multiple subparts of a broader field. So what is the ramp up time to becoming an expert when you're assigned a client? Like how quickly are you expected to do it?
So, I mean, there is transferable knowledge from one client to another. I mean, especially if you work in the same industry, right? You know the basics of banking. How does the treasury work? How does the banking balance sheet work? Like, right? That's a good point. Like the first one is actually the hardest, but you got to go through that, right?
Yeah.
So I think my second case. So I moved. So for the first part of my Bain career, first couple of months, like I'd say 3 to 5 months, 6 months, I was working for a poultry producer in Indonesia. So they make chicken nuggets, essentially, right? Chicken nuggets, chicken fillets, and whatnot. There was a go-to market strategy on how they can actually optimize their traditional trade, so non-supermarket selling points.
Yeah.
So I moved on from that to being put on a case at a bank, right? So you move on from being the frontline distributor office to like an actually high-rise bank, looking to turn around its profitability. So they were losing money and they basically want to be profitable. And I was specifically being tasked on a work stream. So a case is divided into several work streams on how to optimize their front line, meaning like their branch staff productivity. How can their sales agents sell better?
Right.
That's a very interesting ramp up, right? Because one, I don't know what the fuck they're selling. Sorry if I can some my obscenities in this right?
Yeah.
And two, it's just like it's hard, right? I've never talked to like a bank sales agent before. I haven't been to a branch where I'm not the customer, right?
Right.
And now you have to go from that, not knowing anything, to creating a playbook on how to sell better. And at the end of 6 months, I was traveling by myself around Indonesia, being the sales coach over all like 50 branches around Indonesia. So you got to it's a pretty steep ramp up period, right? But it's the fine balance between I guess like delivering or creating value, but also learning and asking the right questions at the right time without giving the impression that you are a total noob or a total rookie.
I see. So I want to stay on this point for a little while, because I think the idea of asking questions is so important to like any career you any job position you find yourself in, it's something that a lot of people struggle with when they're in lecture halls inside of a college course, right?
Yeah.
But there's a trade-off between asking too many questions, or like there's a trade-off between asking too many questions versus not asking enough. And I think the balance of asking the right amount of questions needs the extra ingredient of how informed your questions are. So
Right.
in college, we're always encouraged to ask as many questions as we possibly can. But in spite of that, a lot of the times folks feel a little hesitant to still ask questions because they feel like some of the questions that may not come off as intelligent enough. And obviously with time and with exposure to a subject matter, you're able to formulate more and more intelligent questions that yield more productive discussions. But I imagine like when you're starting out, even at a job, like even with the first skate that you started out with, there was a phase when you might have felt a little nervous or a little hesitant about asking questions. How
Right.
did you combat that? Did you address that with just doing
I
a
think
copious amount of research going into it?
yeah, there are several sort of like several types of asking questions, right? One is the types of questions that you can Google yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Second one are type of questions that you can ask your team members
yeah.
because you might not be able to find on Google, but there is an institutional knowledge within Bain that has an answer to that, right?
All right.
And the third part is basically, so I notice a lot of these in like lecture halls, right? So a lot of a lot of questions that are asked by students that are trying to portray themselves as intelligent, these questions don't necessarily end with a question mark. They're typically a statement.
I've seen those questions. Yeah, yeah,
You see what I'm saying, right?
yeah,
Like where's the freaking question, right? Like, so I try to avoid asking those questions or making those statements
yeah.
in front of clients because you're not trying to like prove something to them, right?